Hello and welcome to Kickstart Connections. I'm your host, Lucinda Underwood. It's been a while. We are back. We are back in the studio, and I'm here with a very special episode and a very special guest, Solitha Shortte from House of Soli. Solitha, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And I feel honored being the first one back with you. Appreciated the offer to come and chat a bit about the House of Soli.
Everything that you've got going on. Yeah, so Solitha is founder and creative director of House of Soli. So why don't you tell me a bit more about House of Soli? I know it's been on a bit of a journey, a bit of a transition. Tell me more.
Sure. And the House of Soli is sort of a new introduction into the branding element of the whole company. Soli Productions Management Inc. is what most people would refer to or would click into when they hear, those words. House of Soli, I needed to do something that would sort of house the whole company because there's three pillars to what I do: the production, the coaching, and the management. And now they're all in one nice, tight package, House of Soli.
I love it. You've got that nice kind of bundle there.
Yes,
that's great. So obviously you're in the fashion industry. Tell me a bit more about the things. So you mentioned kind of your coaching and management. You've got an agency. Break down those kind of departments for anyone that maybe hasn't heard of you.
Right.
Break that down for me.
Thank you. The House of Soli started with my coaching, my love for coaching. My background is in modeling, so I'm transitioning. I still say transitioning because you never stop being a model if this is what you're into. But I loved coaching. I loved teaching and pulling out of individuals something that they didn't think they had in them or were scared to really, push for. So the coaching started the whole journey for me after or while I'm still doing my personal modeling journey. And then after the coaching, production came into place where, for me, I'm very community minded and rooted in service to others because I am in Canada living out a dream that I never even knew I had because people invested time in me and thought I was worthy enough for their service too. So I wanted to give that back as well. So the production started where we did fashion shows for charitable events. And after that, it just took on a whole nother leg. So I was able to coach the talent for the runway to get the execution that I wanted in what my production should look like. And then once the models were trained, there was no way for them to go because I'm very much about diversity. And then once, the models that came to me, they didn't look like what the status quo looked like
Right.
and what our industry represented when it came to beauty and who belong in this space because it's been often exclusionary in that sense. So my mission was, okay, I'll train you, send you to the agencies. They don't have an excuse because then you can walk, you know what you're getting into, yet they weren't being picked up, they weren't being signed. And I just felt like, okay, if you don't want to do this, you've created a gap. I'm going to fill it. And that's how the birth of Soli Management came into play. It was never the first thing. It was never even a thought to become a manager. However, I couldn't stomach seeing people who were very talented, but they didn't look like what everybody expected. And the agents in the market weren't running to pick them up. And I knew how talented they were.
Right. They don't look beyond
the status quo box, that box that they had them in.
I love that because, we don't fit in boxes, do we?
Not at all.
We don't. It's individuality that is beauty.
Right.
Right. So I love that. I love that you kind of saw that, okay, this isn't working the way I want it to and I'm going to change it.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's so empowering.
Become
awesome.
the change you want, right?
Become the change you want. Yeah, exactly. So let's dive into your background. You mentioned then that, you started out, you've got a long background in modeling yourself. But take me through how that started, when that started, and just kind of give me, just tell me about your career up until this point. I'm fascinated.
Ooh la la. Well, I'm originally from St. Vincent and the Grenadines. It's a small island in the Caribbean. Bequia is my home because I'm part of that chain of islands in the Grenadines. And on my beautiful 7 square mile rock, I stumbled upon the the beauty, the elegance that is Naomi Campbell via my television set. And we hadn't seen anything like her in that sense. Well, for me, I hadn't seen anybody portrayed or celebrated in terms of airtime on TV that looked like her, or that looked like me. So once I saw her, I didn't even know really what the industry was, but I knew I wanted to move like her. I wanted to stop people the way she stopped my household. And if you know Caribbean people, we're rowdy, especially when we're watching television. If it's something that can get us going, and I think she popped on, it was a music video, something that came on, but everybody kind of stopped and looked at her, and I was just captivated, and it was over from then. So I started looking or trying to find out more about this beautiful woman, and learned from what she was doing. Like I was tiptoeing on my beach in Lower Bay, tiptoeing in the sands. And I often say I tiptoed from the sands of Bequia to the runways of Nova Scotia and Canada and Europe. And that for me really kicked my modeling journey into high gear. I got picked up by an agent in my main land, which is St. Vincent. And from there, they coached and helped me hone that thing I was doing on the beach. And then I came to North America, did some stuff in Europe, and that kind of really solidified what I was doing as a model and that I loved it. It got me through some really tough times as a teenager, and became my lifeline. And I often say my art saved me, and I wanted to give back. So when I saw other models, backstage when I was in Europe, I went to Berlin Fashion Week, and when I came to other islands, or when I went to other islands in the Caribbean, or even here in North America, if I saw you struggling with your walk, I was the one to come and pull you. I would teach you what I knew and how to execute. And I found that I love this, and I love seeing the transformation. And then my agency here in Halifax, the Cassidy Group, they're no longer open, but my agent Brendel and Bob, they were visionaries in a sense because they saw what I could do and they give me that platform, and they were the first ones to pay me to coach. And I thought, wait a minute, I can get paid for this. And they're like, yep, you're going to coach all of our new talent coming in for the runway and modeling, anything related to the modeling end of things. And that's where it's all started. And that's why I say coaching is really the foundation besides my experience as a model doing this. And I loved seeing that the transformation. The models came with their shoulders bent and their heads down. And then to see them walk out of my class with their shoulders up, eyes straight looking at you, and it gave me some level of satisfaction. And that's where the whole everything kicked off from.
That's where it came from.
Yeah.
And there are so many points you made in there that I want to hit on because, it's having the kind of the presence of mind, but also the gratitude that, when you first started off, you had people that coached you and helped you and kind of, plucked you from your hometown and put you on the world stage. And I think to credit to you for wanting to then pay that forward. Because I'm sure a lot of the models that you work with, especially given that, you really focused on diversity, you've probably got people on your books that have always dreamed of doing this, but maybe never thought they could. Would that be a fair assumption?
Yeah, really fair.
Yeah.
And coming from where I come from and looking the way I look, I was a skinny, tall black girl who I had elements of what was needed when they needed to check a box, or, I was the token in the room, but I had the elements that fit the status quo. Certain elements that fit it. So that ease of access was there because of those
not so many
criteria that I
barriers,
have.
I guess.
Yes.
Yeah.
So my skin was the barrier for a lot of opportunities. However, I'm 5'9".
Yep.
Again, I
Me
had the
too.
build. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Nice. We're connected in
We
a lot of
are.
ways.
There you go. Yeah.
But yeah, so I had those easy access points that got me in the door and kept me in once, they realized, oh, she's talented and she got something. Because when I show up, I show up. Not to toot my own horn, but the runway, there's something about it that I just come alive. And again, because it became my lifeline, when I walk, I stomp. I stomp out all of the things that happened to me as a young adolescent, and as I grew older, I used that because then it worked then. So I kind of just throw myself into the runway.
Right.
So I knew when I show up, you may not want me here, or you may not think I fit, but I'm gonna give you something to talk about.
Yes.
And that's what I wanted to put into my coaching and the production, because again, I never thought of management. So those were the things I wanted to give the people coming to me, the talent that we're going to be showcasing, the designers, clothing, and the brands and all of that. Was when you show up, they cannot deny you access based on your talent.
You don't give them a choice.
Yes, do not give them a choice. Whether
Yes.
you're 5'7" or you're a XX or you are a double XL, they should not deny you for talent. And if that we pull and strip away all of those other labels, talent should be the only thing on that table. And that's why I built those tables to show talent. And you're right, there's a lot of models and even actors that are in our roster or on our roster that don't look the look and should not be. And I know we'll get later into Paris and New York. However, we provided a platform to showcase talent that did not fit the status quo.
Right.
When they showed up, people would be surprised that, oh, why are you here? Because you don't look like the models that are on the other runways in the Paris Fashion Week or the New York Fashion Weeks. However, we wanted to showcase, no, we can put 20-something of them ranging from X to double X, or from 5'7" to 6'4", because that was the tallest model, female model in the runway.
Wow.
And it was for me satisfying, and that's the element of success that I want to put on a billboard, is that we went there and showed up in spaces that would not have given access, and we provided a platform for that to be the highlight, not anything else other than I belong because I'm talented.
Right. And like you say, when when you have the talent there, though, I mean, I can just imagine, some of those first shows, the reactions that you would have got when, like you say, it's not the norm. It doesn't look like what you normally see, but then these people come out and absolutely kill it. Like, that must have been a good feeling.
It was like, yes. It was tear-jerking feeling. Just, knowing that these individuals are doing something that they love to do, that they feel drawn to, that, something that they would not have explored if not giving that opportunity to just be you, go out there with the proper training and show up and deliver.
Yeah.
So that, again, shut down all of the naysays and the status quos and those boxes. Just like, take them out of the conversation, let them see you. So seeing them shine, really, for me, that is where the success is. And it doesn't reflect in my bank account. It may not reflect in, how people chatter. However, I see you seeing you. And that for me is satisfying, because then somebody saw me, let me be me and do my thing, and give me the opportunities to explore this industry that is thorny but beautiful at the same time. I chose to find all of the beauty and correct the thorns.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I love that. And you got to think, like, what an impact that has on the next generation that are seeing this. Again, it's, a few thoughts popping through my mind when you were talking there. And one of them was, really the power of authenticity. and how beautiful it is when you meet someone who is just unapologetically themselves, right? There is a lot of beauty to that. And like I say, with, the younger generation watching your shows and seeing what you're doing, well, suddenly that's creating access if that is their dream, right? Like that must feel good too.
Yeah, you hit it. You hit it. You
Yeah.
get me, and you get what I'm
Yeah.
trying to, the message I'm trying to get across is that authenticity. Because for me, it comes from my core. Again, I know what it did for me.
Yeah.
And to be able to give it to somebody else, and hopefully they can, you know, make it work in whichever facet of their life. There was something about having that confidence that being on the runway and being a model did for me personally. So when I talk about coaching, when I talk about the production, and now, the management end of it, it comes from a real place because I've lived it. I've lived the token situation. I've lived the exclusionary situation. I've lived the success where they, celebrated on the runway and celebrated for doing what I do. However, all of the all of those mixed together give me a really good footing as to how I then help the next person.
Right.
So it's not for the bank, alone. Necessary. The bank is
Yeah.
necessary. However, it comes from a place where I'm doing it because then this is just me. And this is my way of giving back, and again, do what you can in the space that you occupy. And yeah, that's the house of Soli and what
I
I
love it.
I hope to leave as a legacy. And you touched on it, hoping that somebody else, the next generation, or even people who are in the game, can see what I'm doing, see the space that it's needed for more, because I can't do it all. I'm just showing an alternate way than the status quo. And hopefully others come on and join. Because when
Yeah.
I came in not to exclude or eliminate. I came to show an option that was necessary and become a part of a growing industry. And I hope people get that I'm an addition to, not an exclusion for what was.
Right. I see what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, and I do think we are, as a whole, as a society, we are moving in the right direction. I mean, we're not there. We're
No.
definitely not there, but we are moving in the right direction. And it's people like you that are doing things like you're doing that's going to really kind of push that forward. So, and I agree, hopefully other people,
Yes.
jump onto this as well, because at the end of the day, people are people. There's beauty everywhere,
Yeah.
And I want to go back to a point as well. You mentioned, because we were talking a little bit about this before we started recording, weren't we, with the kind of, finding creativity in yourselves. And
Yes.
we were chatting, I'll give kind of a quick summary. We were talking a bit about entrepreneurship, weren't we? And kind of taking that step into the entrepreneur world and, the challenges and the struggles that come along with it, but also the satisfaction of doing something that you have control over. You have that creativity. And you mentioned in your backstory about how, your art really saved you. And I think that was so powerful because, again, I said to you that since I went into entrepreneurship, I really have found a creative side of myself that I didn't know existed. And I know how that's felt for me, the confidence it's given me, the kind of the satisfaction it's given me and the excitement. And, I'm sure a lot of the people on your roster, you're giving them that opportunity too.
I know, I'm smiling because that's exactly the reason I'm still doing this. Again, it's not just for the book. If it for the bank, if it was for the bank, I would be done.
Yeah.
I would be out, and marketing is my focus. That's what I went to university for. So I would have been gone if it wasn't that love and that element of confidence and sort of just grounding that my creative sort of expression has given me, and this journey that I'm on because of it. And I hope that the people that are sitting on my roster and who've gone through my coaching, because not everybody who I coach is in my management, because again, everybody for everybody, not everybody sits in certain spaces, so you have to also know who can be managed by you, who can
Right,
be
it has to
coached
be a
by
fit,
you.
yeah.
There has to be a fit. You have to. It's so vital in the industry to find your fit. So yeah, I hope the ones that are sitting, the ones who've gone through my coaching or even my productions, that they have that. They find that level of confidence, that level of it factor that takes them through all of the no's that they're gonna reach.
Right.
Help them stay a little bit humble when they get all of the yeses and the successes come their way, because a balance is necessary on either, so you're not beating yourself up or you're not over projecting as to where you're gonna go because this one thing landed. It's a work in progress, it's a continuous thing, and that confidence can take you through all of those curves and sort of the roller coaster that is this journey. And I'm sure in life, we are on a roller coaster ride because the ups and downs. But you're right. I hope that they're sitting in a space of confidence that can help them navigate as they go through this journey.
I love that. I love that. So you mentioned earlier Paris and New York. And you were like, we're going to come to that a bit later. Well, it's later. I want to know about Paris and New York.
Yes. Now is the time to chat.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, like I said, the production was sort of the second tier to the House of Soli, the pillar that was put up in the brand, and it allowed me to work with designers. And again, I love the runway. I love what can be done on the runway and how you can showcase, the work of other creatives via the bodies of models on the runway. So, that was the next step. And we've done a lot of shows here in Nova Scotia, rooted in charity and service to community. I also wanted to stretch that out and create something that was sort of annual, and it was focused again in service because it was focused on designers and giving them sort of a space to showcase their work on a consistent basis. So that's how the Soli production runways really took steam. And as COVID hit and we were trying to figure out what do we do, how do we keep our talent sort of motivated, as there was nobody knew what was happening or when we were going to get out of this thing that we were sort of thrust into. So we did a virtual element of the show, and that just allowed us to connect with people across the world, and it opened up what we were doing, and partnered with the city of Halifax to do This Is Us. And from that, it's like, okay, what's the next step? We did it at the Grand Parade, and people for that show were saying, "Oh my gosh, you brought Paris to Halifax," and um, for me, it was no, I brought Halifax to Halifax. I wanted to show us what we're capable of. And it's not that other shows weren't happening, because I'm not the first to do this. I'm not creating something new. I'm doing Soli. And through that, giving designers who didn't have an opportunity. And again, the runway, even here, was not as inclusive. Not everybody felt they were welcome, because I have never walked a runway here except for once I started doing my own thing.
Oh, wow.
So,
Wow.
if you dig a little, dig back, and the rosters didn't look the way they look now prior to Soli. So I call it the Soli effect, whether it was for competition or it was for whatever reason, or they saw the light. My whole sort of claim to success is that they changed because.
Yeah.
And that changed allow for many more people to be represented and have space in the industry here. So with that, for me lingering, I thought, okay, if they're thinking we brought Paris to them, and in my mind I'm bringing Halifax to Halifax, then I'm in a space now to take Halifax to Paris.
I love it.
And
Yes.
we had to segue a little bit before Paris because New York came before that, and I'm the face of Soli. However, there's a team of us working on this. There's four other strong women, Cindy, Otney, Angie, and my sister Moshella, that are part of the fabric of Soli production, or the House of Soli. And outside of that, the partners that we have connected with, BNV Media, is one of, that sort of solid connection that I am beyond grateful for, that alignment, because it allowed me to connect with people who don't look like me. It's two amazing young men doing their thing in the industry, and in the industry that's adjacent to the fashion industry, but we spoke the same language, and that connection again allowed me to branch out a little further, and connecting with people like the Lighthouse, and Billy at the Halifax events just give me a little bit of steam to push further with the productions. So I said all that just to showcase it's not just me doing this, even though I'm the one out here chatting. It's a team of us working collectively together for the purpose of elevating Nova Scotia fashion beyond the borders of Nova Scotia and the Atlantic region. So yeah, the opportunity came up. Designer Melanie Munden, who's a dear friend, also, she got an opportunity to go to New York Fashion Week. And she was like, I want Soli production. I need Soli management models because I know they're coached and they're trained. And for me, that was like,
wow.
you know, it was a really humbling moment when she said, nope, it has to be Soli management models that go, because I know I'm going to get what I want and need on the runway. And we're going into New York. I can't show up with anything mediocre. I can't show up,
Yeah,
I'm in New
absolutely.
York.
The quality has to be there.
It has to be top notch, and that's what we delivered, and that began the conversation of expanding through the House of Soli into the mainstream markets. And again, going back to the beginning conversation, where the talent did not look like the status quo.
Right.
However, their talent is comparable to anybody on the Chanel runway, on the Louis Vuitton, any runway in those bigger spaces. Our talent here in Nova Scotia can walk the walk.
I love it.
And that's what we did through New York. It was an amazing experience. We had a billboard. The team from BNV Media was there capturing. Our documentary team was there capturing as well. And just to see the models light up, just to see them,
it was huge.
Yeah,
I mean, what an opportunity.
Yes.
That's
yeah.
Yeah.
I still get goosebumps because it was the first show outside of Nova Scotia, outside of Canada, that really solidified the next step and the evolution of where Soli, the brand, was going to go. That was always a hope. It happened really fast. But I'm grateful for that. And that just put us on the trajectory for what's coming next. So New York kicked it off. Everybody in that production was really, blown away by the level of talent that came to the runway and what they did. And then Paris was the next stop,
it's the next logical step, obviously.
Yeah,
Once
why not?
you've conquered New York, I mean, it's got to be Paris next.
Why not? So we got the opportunity again via Melanie Munden through the House of Musa, and that's a Filipino-based house. So us showing up, we were the only ones who looked like that level of diversity as well, because the house is very specific to the Musa fabric and coming from the Philippines. So we were showing up in a space that, again, was catered to promoting their conversation, their messaging, and we came and brought models that were so diverse and just really popped out on the runway. And then after New York, Paris came. Melanie Munden was going to showcase at the House of Musa. And I thought, if we're going to be in Paris, I got to step it up from New York. What can we do next to really make our mark? And my brand was built on just showing up, building my tables, and guerrilla marketing style has always been sort of a grounding thing with Soli. If you know me, I'm a pop-up and I'm a do. I don't need permission. I will ask and say sorry after. However, what was I going to do in Paris? You know, I wasn't able to go to New York with the team. Cindy and my sister Moshella led the team there. Paris, I knew I was going. So I was like, okay, there's something we have to do a little different. And it opened up stemming off of Halifax Fashion Week, which we haven't touched on because that was the evolution here as to the next step. From Halifax Fashion Week, one of the designers, many of them, you know, came out and just did their thing. And I thought, why do we have to just keep it there in Halifax? We can take at least one or two to Paris, in extension to Milani Munden, and Playwear was able to go with us to Paris and allow us to show up in the streets of Paris at the Louvre
Oh my
and do
goodness.
our thing there, and had a reception that was, for me, just really lit a fire in me, because we were told, no, you can't do it here at the Louvre. And we talked our way into at least having an element of what we were doing, because their whole thing was we were distracting from that attraction. So all of the people in the space were now looking at what our models were doing, and Playwear got onto the tongues of people because her clothing is branded. So people started following her and knowing, oh, Playwear, Nova Scotian brand, oh, Paris Fashion Week. That was the conversation, seeing all these models show up. And again, they didn't look like what was happening at, whether it was the Victoria Beckham showcase. It wasn't what was happening at Louis Vuitton or the other ones that were in the space having their shows around the same time. So I wasn't outside of, we were part of, and that's how people associated what we were doing as as Paris Fashion Week. And this is a group from Nova Scotia, Canada, that they don't, who, where, what?
Yeah.
Fashion there. Yeah, fashion is here, and we are as comparable in terms of talent. So that's kind of the where the journey is going for the production of Under the House of Soli, is going into these mainstream spaces, carrying our talent from the designers to the models to the photography and makeup and hair team, and people who would not have thought, oh, let me go to Paris, because what would I be doing there, or how would I have access? Our production and the house now allows for those platforms to now move into those spaces unapologetically, and show up and deliver something that is comparable to anything else in those spaces.
Oh.
So long way to get around it, but it's really depthy, and I hope people in Nova Scotia and Atlantic Canada claim what we're doing, because it's not just the House of Soli and the
Right.
partners that we are affiliated with. Like, again, our production crew was there for Fashionably Great, and BNV Media, a big part of the conversation, which we'll get into where that alignment also is going when it comes to fashion in Nova Scotia, because there's some exciting stuff coming via that. So we've laid the foundation for the next step. And the next step is, how do we move Nova Scotia fashion, not just Soli management models, but models that are in the area will have access to these opportunities as they
Right.
come. But I needed to start with what I know and what, in terms of my training, can deliver in those spaces when we try to make a sort of inroad into the mainstream conversation.
I just love your attitude to things. It's the, we can do it, nothing's too big. The seeing the power of joining forces, right? Having a team of like-minded individuals who wants to make the same impact. And, you know, like you said, even from the beginning, when you started your career, you showed up and you did your thing. Right? And that is so important. I mean, I think whatever you do in life, right? I think that's so important to have that mindset of to just believe in yourself and say, you know what, regardless, I'm going to show up and I'm going to give it my best.
Yeah.
That's huge. And I mean, and look where it's led.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
That's all you can do.
It is. I mean, we get one shot at life, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to have regrets.
No,
you know.
no.
I've always thought that too. Like, you know, sometimes you're going into something that maybe feels really big and scary, and it's the imposter syndrome kicks in, and you're like, I don't know who gave me this opportunity, but I should not be here right now. They're going to find out I'm a fraud, I'm a fake. And, it's having that, being able to kind of slow down your thoughts enough to just say, you know what, well, I'm here anyway, so I may as well give it my best shot. And if it doesn't work out and I gave my best, I'm okay with that.
Yeah. That's how you got to move.
You have to.
You can't let the opportunities come and go. And then it's like, oh, I should have. For me, I'm going to just show up and do and learn as I go. Because sometimes it's smooth sailing and sometimes it's bumpy. And the turbulence is unbearable sometimes. However, if I didn't do it, then that for me is worse than going through the learning curves that are necessary to elevate to the next level. I'm gonna show up and do.
Show up and do.
Yeah, show up.
I love it. I love it. If you take anything away from this episode, show up and do.
Yeah,
that's amazing. But it's so true. And I mean, again, the lessons are there, right? And they are just as valuable on our path. We don't attain success without failure. And I think if you can keep that kind of mentality around it of saying, okay, if something doesn't go 100% my way, I need to look for the lesson and then I need to move on. Right?
Yeah. You can't be trapped in the lesson and refusing to learn from it.
Yeah.
You have to elevate. And I've learned that along this journey because again, I'm a Black woman from the Caribbean. I moved here with, the idea of a dream because when I came, modeling was my thing. That's what I was going to do. I came to school because then it was my way to be in Canada. Again, now, I came as a student and then stayed working and doing my thing. But as an immigrant, the opportunities that are here aren't available in my country, weren't available then and still aren't now. So if I didn't take that leap and also learn to move with the flow, because then my modeling career got, derailed into another space and it led me to coach and management and production. If I had just stopped when the doors were closed for the modeling, and it was closed because of my papers. So, where you're born dictates the opportunities
100%.
that you're going to have in life. And for a long time, I really hated that passport, to be honest.
Yeah.
As going through those moments, it was like, because I'm Vincentian, because I'm not carrying a Canadian passport, I don't have access to get signed by one of the major agencies in the world. Like Elite, I was at the door of Elite until they saw my passport. And that broke me. It broke me. Because then I saw myself, whoops, and then it was no whoo. And I came back to Nova Scotia and dived into school and did my marketing. So the point I'm trying to go with that is don't sort of overlook the doors that are opening because the one closed that you wanted.
Right.
That one that closed redirected me. Focus on my marketing. Go get my degree. That's the only how I'm going to be able to stay in Canada. Because going through that, PR process, which I'm still in and still navigating that. And for people who don't know, the PR, the permanent resident, right?
Yeah.
For people who don't know the lingo of an immigrant, like the PR stuff.
Yeah.
However, that journey gave me a solid foundation because then it was because of my marketing that I'm able to navigate being owner of a modeling agency and a production company and a coaching company that's all housed under the House of Soli. So if I didn't have that and that focus wasn't there, I wouldn't be where I am right now.
And you wouldn't have discovered this love.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh my gosh, I would not have. I would not have discovered this because I love marketing. I love what I do on that end. But it also gave me space to really love the fashion industry and really love what I'm doing. Even though I said it saved me, however, those doors closing, it was like, why did you give me this talent? Why am I here? Why do I need to show up on a runway? Why when the camera comes on, there's the shoulders go back and it's automatic with me. And I'm like, you're giving me something I can't access. because of where I was born.
Right.
You know?
But you find a way.
Yeah. And
Find a way.
that's the message I hope people get from this, is that don't sort of downplay where those closed doors are directing you or redirecting you.
Well, and that's it. And I mean, it's a pretty popular quote, but about rejection actually being redirection.
It is.
And it took me years to really kind of learn that. I would take things very hard and that kind of thing. And then, finally, once you do and you see it in that way, you're like, okay, this door's closed. What I thought I wanted, I'm not going to get. But you take that and you take the resilience that you get from that experience and you create something better.
Beautiful.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah. We speak the same language.
We do.
We speak the same language.
I feel like this is going to lead into a lot more conversations because I'm fascinated. But I also want to go back to something that you just said as well. And I want to, almost end on this conversation of what's next. You teased me. You said there's some exciting things coming. You're working with BNV Media, and I want to know all about it.
Yeah,
put me out of my misery. Tell me.
Let's kill the suspense. So for me, I'm always looking at how do we leave a lasting mark in the space that we are. And this was for me. The House of Soli allowed me to do that with fashion. I hope, again, others come in, whether they're joining forces with me or after, because I'm joining forces with the people who are already in the market doing their thing. This is my version of it via the House of Soli. But it's all necessary for us to keep doing so that the market here in Nova Scotia, in Atlantic Canada, get sort of the recognition that it needs, because there's so much talent here.
100%.
And we just don't have the platform or the access to the mainstream market to have that recognition come our way. Because not only is it talent that's in this space, but the space itself provides an opportunity for productions to come here and do their showcase. Why not have the Louis here? Why not have the Chanel have their productions done here?
We live in a beautiful part of the world.
It's so amazing. And the backdrop, you cannot pay for the Peggy's Cove, for the trails when you're going to Cape Breton, for the spaces here in Nova Scotia that give you so much. Right. And that leads me now into Halifax Fashion Week, which for us was the segue into the Paris and the New York. But Halifax Fashion Week is something that I wanted to add as well through the House of Soli in partnership with the Lighthouse Arts Center, BNV Media. And all of the other people who are coming on board to make this possible, where there's a seasonal showcase. And it would be a springboard for the models, for the designers to go to New York, to go to Paris, because that's what happened with Paris. That's how Playwear was able to go to to go to Paris. And a few of the models got chosen because of their performance in Halifax Fashion Week to go to Paris. So how do we keep that constant? How do we keep that elevation going in our industry
and create those opportunities?
Right. And this is where we're at right now with the next step of Solitha. So the House of Soli is here. We're fine tuning. We're making sure that the pillars are in place and grounded. And I thought, I've done my part in building Soli. I'm still building, but now it gives me an opportunity to focus on something that's more industry related. And I know I've been chatting with Mark and Jamie, throughout our connection, throughout our partnership. And once the idea came out, it's like we needed to do something that's industry related. So it wasn't under the brand of House of Soli. We needed to do something different. That will still be in the benefit of the fashion industry here in Nova Scotia and Atlantic Canada. And Nova Scotia Fashion Association came to be. So it's co-founded by Jamie, Mark, myself, and Cindy McNeil. And we gravitated towards each other because we speak the same language. We want the same thing. And, just knowing that it has a space where people are going to protect what we're building, whether it's whether I move on to something else or Jamie or Mark or Cindy, we all have that sort of same vision for where we
Right.
want to take the industry, and
which is important in any partnership, right?
right.
Yeah.
So creating that founding partnership, we're now able to bring on a board of directors that will be, from different elements of the fashion industry here in Atlantic Canada. And we're all speaking the same language because we want to grow Nova Scotia fashion outside, because that's the only way it's going to be sustainable. So via the partnership with the four of us, Fashion Nova Scotia is our nonprofit organization. And I say Fashion Nova Scotia because that's what we're going to be using. But Nova Scotia Fashion Association is the legal name. The operating name will be Fashion Nova Scotia, just to make it simple.
Yeah.
But more will be coming on that as we fine tune and release that organization into the conversation here in
And
Atlantic
I'm expecting
Canada.
there's going to be probably a great launch event.
Yes, there will be. If you know us,
Yeah.
BNV and Soli, if you know what we do, it's going to be something, to talk about. And again, it's going to be very inclusionary. So it's, representing all of the models that are here, the agencies that are here, the hair and makeup departments, the photography, bringing all of it together so we can all be speaking a language on the same space, in the same vein of how do we elevate what we're doing here in Nova Scotia collectively, putting governing elements in place that would help elevate us. So it's no longer just, I wanted it not to be a Soli thing, but to be an industry thing and a Fashion Nova Scotia thing. So I'm grateful again for Mark and Jamie. Cindy has been with me with Soli Productions and, Soli Management and Soli Coaching for the inception of our partnership. But once I met Mark and Jamie and we really connected and had that language of similarity in terms of what we want to do in the industry, there was no better fit. Right. For who would be, governing or the founders of this next step of what we're doing. Because I know if I leave, it's in great hands. And I didn't want the conversation to be a Soli thing, but a Nova Scotia fashion thing. So the next step of Solitha is Nova Scotia Fashion Association, while we still chug away under the House of Soli doing what we do there. But bringing both to the market and the mainstream conversation is how I see us elevating the fashion industry, because all the other industries in our province are growing. However, there's not a lot of focus on the fashion element of it, which it's woven into the fibers of everything we do. So we want to put a spotlight and bring notice to the designers that are hustling, the models that are doing their thing, the other creatives in the industry that are making it work. We need a little bit of focus, or a lot of focus, to help us stay here, and we don't have to move to New York or Paris or Toronto, the big spaces that facilitate growth in fashion. We want that to be a Nova Scotia thing too.
You want to keep it close to home.
Yes.
And I love that. And I mean, Nova Scotia, Halifax, it is one of those places. It's a hidden gem for so many reasons. Like we were saying, it's a beautiful place to live. But also, I mean, it is a very creative city. I mean, again, I didn't grow up here. I'm like you. I immigrated here. And over the years, as I've really kind of settled in, and I've really seen that. I mean, we have a great music scene. We have a great food scene. We have great talent when it comes to acting, modeling. This is a very much up and coming place in that way. So I think the fact that you are so determined, like you say, to stay here and really represent our area, I think is amazing. And I'm super excited for all of you. I can't wait to hear more and stay in touch. And actually, speaking of that, before we wrap up, if any of my listeners want to follow along your journey, reach out, how can they find out more about you? Give us like your website, Instagram, that kind of thing.
All right. So our website is soliproductions.com. if you're looking for more information regarding, right now, all of the pillars are housed at soliproductions.com. We are launching our new website for the management element. So people who are thinking of getting into the industry, but you can go to the production website for now. And our IG handles, again, there's the House of Soli that you can go and you'll find all of them. But specific if you're looking for coaching, and the coaching is spread out. So it doesn't have to be that you want to be in the fashion or film industry. If you're looking to build confidence, it's the perfect workshop to do that for you. So you can, infuse that into other areas of your life. So Soli Coaching is our IG handle. Soli Management, so SOLIMGMT is our management IG handle, and Soli Productions is where you'll find the happenings for what we do on the runway and with brands. And my numbers are there on all of them. If you, I pick up the phone, or shoot us over an email if you're interested in more. And Fashion Nova Scotia, once that is launched out, which we will be doing shortly, you'll hear more on that. That will cover the industry on a wider spectrum.
I love that. We'll have to do a follow-up episode once that launch is happening, because I'm sure there's going to be there's going to be lots of exciting things to talk about.
You got the first scoop. You're the first.
I got the first scoop and I want the next one too. Solitha, thank you so much for joining me today. I really enjoyed our conversation. You've got so many exciting things going on, and I can't wait to see more. To my listeners, as always, thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget, if you like this episode, please don't forget to subscribe, share, rate and review, and follow us on social media at Kickstart Connections Podcast. Thank you for listening and have a great day.